My friends, history often reminds us that relationships, whether between nations or between people, are fragile. They are built slowly, brick by brick, through trust, respect, and shared vision. But they can be shaken, even damaged, by the actions of just one person. One decision, one word, one act that shifts the balance and forces both sides to stop and re-examine what they once believed was unshakable. When a bond as significant as the one between the United States and India tested, the world pays attention, because this is more than diplomacy, more than politics. It is about the story of two great nations striving to find common ground. And when that story is disrupted by one individual, it reveals something deeper. It shows us that no matter how strong a partnership may appear, its strength ultimately depends on people, their choices, their integrity, their character. One person can alter the course of history, not always by grand design, but often through a single choice, a single act that ripples far beyond what they imagine. It is easy to believe that only nations, governments, or massive institutions have the power to change the direction of the world. Yet time and again we are reminded that the actions of an individual can disrupt even the strongest alliances. One word spoken without thought, one decision made without wisdom, one betrayal of trust can create consequences that echo across borders. This is the reality of power and responsibility, that each of us carries within our hands the ability to influence far more than we realize. When a relationship as important as the bond between two great nations is shaken, people often ask how something so significant could be touched by the decision of just one person. The answer lies in the truth that relationships are not made of policies alone. They are built on trust, on shared understanding, on the fragile threads of respect and credibility. And when one individual acts in a way that breaks that trust, it can feel as though the foundation itself has been cracked. That is the weight of influence, sometimes unrecognized until it is too late. But there is another side to this truth. If one person has the power to damage, one person also has the power to inspire. If one voice can spread doubt, another can restore hope. If one action can break trust, another can begin to rebuild it. The same force that can shake the world in destruction can also shape it in progress. The key lies in understanding that responsibility is not something we can pass to someone else. It belongs to us. Every decision, every word, every action has consequences, and those consequences have the power to travel farther than we can see. The weight of one individual's choices is a reminder of how interconnected we are. No life exists in isolation. No decision is truly small. A careless moment can strain a bond between nations, just as an act of integrity can strengthen it. That is why history pays such close attention to the stories of individuals, because within the actions of one person lies the ability to remind the world of its highest potential or its deepest flaws. Trust is one of the most powerful forces that bind people, communities, and nations together. It is built not in an instant, but slowly, through consistency, honesty, and respect. It takes years, sometimes decades, for two sides to develop the kind of trust that allows them to stand shoulder to shoulder, to depend on one another when the stakes are high. And yet, this same trust can be shaken in a moment. A single action, a single misstep, can undo what took years to establish. That is the fragile nature of trust. It requires patience to build, but only seconds to fracture. When trust is broken, it feels like the very ground beneath us has shifted. Doubt seeps in where once there was confidence. Suspicion rises where once there was openness. The disappointment is not only in the act itself, but in the sense of betrayal it creates. Because trust is not just about agreements or promises. It is about believing that someone will stand by their word, that they will honor the foundation built together. And when that belief is violated, it cuts deeper than any disagreement, because it strikes at the heart of what makes relationships meaningful. But while trust is fragile, it is not beyond repair. History shows us that the strongest relationships are not the ones that never face conflict, but the ones that endure it, learn from it, and emerge stronger on the other side. Rebuilding trust is not easy. It requires humility, accountability, and consistent effort over time. It demands that words be matched by actions, that promises be reinforced with proof, and that respect be earned again through commitment. The process is slow, but it is also powerful, because the very act of a pair rebuilding can create a bond even stronger than before. The fragility of trust is not a weakness, it is a reflection of how deeply it matters. If trust were meaningless, its loss would not hurt as much as it does. The fact that it shakes us so profoundly shows its value. It is a reminder that the relationships we cherish, whether between individuals or nations, depend not on grand gestures, but on the daily choices to honor one another, to act with integrity, and to respect the promises that hold us together. Crisis has a way of stripping away the layers we use to present ourselves to the world and revealing who we truly are at the core. When everything is smooth, when life is comfortable, it is easy to speak about values, about principles, about unity. But words spoken in times of peace are tested only when adversity arrives. Crisis exposes whether those values are real convictions or simply convenient statements. It is in moments of disruption that the strength of character is revealed. Not in how we talk, but in how we act when pressure is at its highest. When trust is shaken or when relationships are damaged, people naturally look to see how others will respond. Will they retreat into fear, pointing fingers and placing blame? Will they give in to anger and bitterness, allowing division to take root? Or will they demonstrate resilience, choosing to rise above the immediate pain and look toward solutions? These are the questions that crisis places before us. And the answers define more than just a moment. They define legacy. Character is not forged when life is easy. It is forged when the easy path is no longer available. For nations, the same principle holds true. In moments of broken trust or fractured relationships, a country's true character is measured not by the disruption itself, but by the decision of how to respond. A weak response will settle for division and suspicion, while a strong response seeks dialogue, repair, and progress. That strength is born not from ignoring pain, but from confronting it with honesty and courage. It is the willingness to look at the damage clearly and still commit to the harder path of rebuilding. For individuals, too, crisis is the mirror that reflects the heart. It asks whether we will allow challenges to define us by fear, or whether we will use them to sharpen our resilience and deepen our commitment to what matters most. Every crisis is a crossroads. It can either pull us apart or ascend. Bring out the best in us. The difference lies in whether we choose to see the challenge as a wall that blocks us or as a test that shapes us into something stronger, wiser, and more determined than before. Unity has always been stronger than betrayal. The mistake or failure of one individual may cause damage, it may plant seeds of doubt, but it can never erase the vision, the determination, or the hope carried by millions. A single act can create cracks in trust, but it cannot collapse the foundation. If the collective chooses to stand firm, betrayal may sting, but unity has the power to heal, to overcome, and to outlast the pain of disappointment. History is filled with examples of how communities and nations refused to be defined by the missteps of a few and instead drew strength from the will of the many. When betrayal occurs, it feels deeply personal. It challenges our sense of security and forces us to question the reliability of those around us. Yet it is in these very moments that unity becomes more essential than ever. Because unity is not about pretending betrayal didn't happen. It is about refusing to let it control the future. It is about recognizing that while one person may falter, countless others remain committed, countless others are willing to carry the vision forward. The collective strength of the many has always been greater than the failure of one. Unity transforms pain into purpose. It channels disappointment into determination. It allows people to rise above bitterness and redirect their energy toward building, toward progress, toward something larger than the hurt caused by betrayal. When individuals come together with a shared mission, the noise of betrayal begins to fade. It loses its power because the focus shifts from what was broken to what can still be built. And in that shift, progress becomes possible again. The greatest power of unity is its ability to create resilience. While betrayal may leave scars, unity ensures those scars do not define the future. It reinforces the truth that our destiny is not written by the weakness of a few, but by the collective resolve of the many who choose to stand together. Unity is the shield that protects against despair, the force that keeps vision alive, and the answer to every attempt to divide or discourage. It is the reminder that no single act of betrayal can outweigh the determination of people united by a common purpose. Division can be created and what can outweigh the determination of people united by a common purpose. Division can be created in an instant. Suspicion can spread quickly, fueled by fear, misunderstanding, or the sting of betrayal. Walls rise almost effortlessly, cutting people off from one another, turning partners into adversaries, and replacing dialogue with silence. Yet while division comes easily, dialogue requires courage. It demands patience, humility, and the willingness to listen even when anger makes listening difficult. Dialogue is not about ignoring differences, but about facing them with honesty and trust. Openness, about choosing to bridge gaps instead of letting them widen into permanent chasms. It is through dialogue that progress becomes possible where division threatened to end it. When nations or individuals stop talking, the silence becomes heavier than the disagreement itself. Assumptions take the place of truth, and suspicion grows where clarity could have stood. But when dialogue begins, even cautiously, it opens a path forward. It signals that no matter the damage, There is still a willingness to reach across the divide. It does not erase the past, but it acknowledges that the future cannot be built on silence or bitterness. Dialogue is the act of turning confrontation into conversation, of replacing hostility with the hope of understanding. Dialogue requires strength because it means lowering defenses long enough to hear another perspective. It means acknowledging wounds without allowing them to dictate the future. It asks us to put pride aside, not to surrender our values, but to recognize that progress cannot come from shouting past one another. Every step toward dialogue is a step away from destruction, because dialogue creates the possibility of solutions, while division ensures only stagnation or decline. History reminds us that dialogue has ended wars, healed nations, and restored relationships that seemed irreparably broken. It proves that words, when chosen with courage and sincerity, are stronger than the walls built by suspicion. Dialogue is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the choice to build when it would be easier to destroy, to listen when it would be easier to accuse, and to work toward a shared vision when bitterness tempts us to walk away. It is the path that transforms wounds into lessons and conflict into cooperation, ensuring that no setback, no betrayal, no fracture becomes the final word. Every setback carries within it the seed of renewal. What feels like an ending in the present moment can often become the foundation for something far greater in the future. History is built on stories of collapse that gave way to rebirth, of failures that became the soil for extraordinary growth. The true test of a nation, of a community, or of an individual is not whether they encounter setbacks, they always will, but whether they allow those setbacks to define them or drive them toward transformation. Renewal is the process of taking what was broken and using it as a blueprint for something stronger. When relationships fracture or trust is shaken, it may seem as though the damage is permanent. Yet renewal reminds us that nothing is beyond repair when there is vision, willpower, and determination. It is not about pretending the fracture never happened. It is about drawing wisdom from it, learning from mistakes, and deciding that the story will not end in defeat. Renewal is born out of reflection, but it lives in action. The willingness to take deliberate steps toward rebuilding with greater clarity, greater resilience, and greater purpose than before. In renewal, weakness is transformed into strength. A scar does not erase the wound that created it, but it becomes a mark of survival, a reminder of what was endured and overcome. Renewal embraces those scars as proof that what once threatened to destroy can instead become a source of power. Every nation that has risen from hardship, every leader who has grown from failure, and every movement that has survived betrayal carries within it this truth. Renewal is not the end of the story. It is the continuation written by those unwilling to give up. The possibility of renewal rests in choice. It is the decision to look at a setback not as a final verdict, but as an invitation to reimagine what is possible. It is the determination to take the ashes of disappointment and use them to fuel the fire of a new beginning. Renewal calls for courage because it asks us to believe that the future can be brighter than the past, even when the evidence of pain still lingers. It demands persistence because renewal is not instant. It is built step by step, choice by choice, until what once looked like ruin becomes a testimony of resilience.